The story continues with Lin Dong, holding the ancient key, demonstrating his strength in front of the advanced dynasties. On the ancient cultivation platform, the sound of the wind breaking through the air rang out, and immediately, more than a dozen figures landed steadily. Their eyes, filled with an intense and rebellious aura, were immediately cast towards Lin Dong and his companion. At the same time, Lin Dong's gaze also turned towards them. The newly arrived group, all dressed in sky-blue robes, bore the emblem of a giant eagle with outstretched wings on their clothing. Clearly, these individuals belonged to the same dynasty. Lin Dong's eyes quickly scanned the group and then focused on the leading figure. This man stood with his hands behind his back, his gaze arrogant. Yet, the powerful fluctuations faintly emanating from his body made it clear that his arrogance had a foundation. "So, it's you, the much-talked-about Lin Dong," the man said with a dismissive glance at Lin Dong and his companion. "For you to have found this place, it seems you have some ability. But this area now belongs to the Sky Eagle dynasty. You should find another spot." Lin Dong's eyebrows slightly raised. He had heard of the Sky Eagle dynasty. It was another advanced dynasty, no less powerful than the demonic rock dynasty. He hadn't expected to encounter them here. "You're from an advanced dynasty as well. Don't you understand the principle of first come, first served?" Lin Dong replied with a smile. Although the Pill River had multiple cultivation platforms, this was the one he had reached first. To ask him to leave without a fight was not in his nature. "First come, first served?" The man sneered, his eyes cold as he stared at Lin Dong. "I don't understand such principles. The only principle I know is that the bigger fist makes the rules. Or do you think that just because you've crossed paths with the demonic rock dynasty, you're now qualified to contend with the Sky Eagle dynasty? Kid, considering you've come this far from a low-level dynasty, it's quite an achievement. That's why I'm giving you a bit of face. But if you don't know what's good for you, perhaps you should experience my Sky Eagle Claw King Rend." As he spoke, an undercurrent of murderous intent flowed faintly from within Wang Lai's body. He had heard rumors about Lin Dong, but felt no fear. His own strength was at the peak of the first Nirvana Stage. Although there might be a slight gap compared to Shirkuin, the Sky Eagle dynasty had more Nirvana-level powerhouses than the demonic rock dynasty. Among the 10 people behind him, 8 had stepped into the Nirvana Stage, making them the core force of the Sky Eagle dynasty. In his view, with such a lineup, what waves could Lin Dong and his companion possibly stir? Seeing Wang Lai's aggressive stance, a cold glint flashed in Lin Dong's eyes. Behind him, Little Yan's hand slowly tightened around his iron rod, the scales on the rod's surface faintly spreading open. "Kid, have you thought it over?" Wang Lai sneered. "Take your dogs and get out," Lin Dong said coldly. Wang Lai's face darkened instantly. He stared at Lin Dong, a sinister grin slowly forming on his face. "You ungrateful brat. It seems I need to show you what kind of place this ancient battleground is and what status scum like you hold here. Capture this kid. I want to break every bone in his body, piece by piece," Wang Lai commanded ominously. "Yes." Upon hearing Wang Lai's chilling command, the 10 people behind him responded with malicious grins, and a surge of powerful primordial energy erupted in an instant. 10 figures burst out, their powerful attacks converging directly on Lin Dong. Seeing these people make their move, a fierce glint flashed in Little Yan's eyes. He was about to strike, but Lin Dong held him back. Devouring realm. Lin Dong's eyes turned icy cold. With a clasp of his palms, a curtain of devouring power instantly unfolded, engulfing the entire cultivation platform in the blink of an eye. "Little Mink, can you locate and activate the hidden formations on this cultivation platform?" Lin Dong asked internally as the devouring realm spread out. "Got it," Little Mink responded, turning into a streak of red light and darting away. "Little Yin, go. Hit them with everything you've got." Lin Dong turned his attention back to the devouring realm. Inside, the members of the Sky Eagle dynasty, who were now trapped, were frantically launching attacks in all directions. Lin Dong's lips curled into a grin, revealing his sharp, white teeth. "Understood." Little Yin nodded heavily, a savage gleam in his eyes. Gripping his iron rod, he charged forward. As he entered the devouring realm, Lin Dong's mind moved, creating a protective film of devouring power around Little Yan's body. This way, even within the devouring realm, Little Yan's strength would not be diminished. Watching Little Yan charge into the devouring realm with murderous intent, Lin Dong flicked his sleeve, summoning the blood spirit puppet and throwing it into the realm as well. With his current strength, the devouring realm he activated could trap Nirvana powerhouses, but it would be a bit challenging to restrain someone like Wang Lai, who was at the peak of the first Nirvana stage. However, with Little Yan personally engaging him, Wang Lai wouldn't have the capacity to destroy the devouring realm. As for the others, he and the blood spirit puppet would ensure they were well entertained. Within the devouring realm, Wang Lai was initially startled by the sudden spread of the eerie darkness. However, as a first Nirvana stage powerhouse, he quickly shouted, "Don't panic. Attack together. Whatever this thing is, tear it apart for me." But just as his voice fell, a black iron rod, carrying a terrifying force, emerged from the darkness in front of him and struck his body like lightning. A metallic sound rang out, and the next moment, Wang Lai's figure staggered back in disarray. His internal energy churned violently. Shocked, he hurriedly channeled his primordial energy to shield himself while his eyes scanned the surroundings. But all he could see was darkness. Even his perception was being blocked. Bang! 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 In this darkness, all Wang Lai could hear were the muffled sounds of fists hitting flesh around him, followed by the pitiful screams of his subordinates. "Damn it! What the hell is this? Lin Dong, you coward! If you have the guts, show yourself and fight me." A deep sense of frustration welled up in Wang Lai's heart. He didn't fear being defeated, but he loathed the situation where he couldn't even see his opponent and was already seriously injured. "Even if I show myself, what could you do?" As Wang Lai's voice fell, Lin Dong's cold laugh suddenly echoed by his ear. Instinctively, Wang Lai swung a punch, but it hit only empty air. Boom! His punch missed, but a gust of wind suddenly surged in front of him and ruthlessly slapped his face, twisting it grotesquely, causing blood to pour from his nose. Bang! No sooner had Wang Lai been hit in the face than an iron rod emerged from the darkness again, slamming into his arm with a bone-cracking sound that echoed painfully. "Retreat! Get out of here!" The relentless assault in the darkness finally pushed Wang Lai to the brink of collapse. His roar resounded loudly, and then, disregarding the oncoming attacks, he charged wildly in a single direction, enduring several more hits along the way. Lin Dong's devouring realm wasn't too large, so after a desperate charge, the darkness finally receded, and blinding light burst into view. With such meager skills, you dare to act arrogant and domineering? You don't know your own limits. As Wang Lai and his men staggered out of the darkness, battered and bruised, Lin Dong's teasing voice drifted into their ears. Wang Lai was so enraged that he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His gaze turned ferocious as he looked back at the cultivation platform, where Lin Dong was watching him with a playful smile. "Form up. Today I want to exhaust this little brat to death here," Wang Lai roared, nearly losing control. He was utterly unable to accept this humiliating situation. They hadn't even managed to touch Lin Dong, yet they were all beaten into a pitiful state. If news of this got out, the Sky Eagle dynasty's reputation would be utterly tarnished. Upon hearing Wang Lai's roar, the disheveled Sky Eagle dynasty powerhouses behind him quickly spread out. However, just as they were about to form up against Lin Dong, the cultivation platform began to tremble. Suddenly, crimson barriers of light surged upward, forming a thick, protective dome that completely enveloped the platform. "What is this?" The Sky Eagle dynasty powerhouses were dumbfounded as they watched this scene. From the crimson barriers, they sensed an extremely powerful energy fluctuation. "Brother Wang Lai, it seems they've activated the hidden formation on the cultivation platform," one of the Sky Eagle dynasty powerhouses muttered. They knew some information about the Pill River and understood just how formidable the protective formations here were. "Stand guard here. I refuse to believe they won't come out eventually." Also, send a signal to our allies and the people from the demonic rock dynasty. I want to give this brat a grand reception when he finally emerges." Wang Lai's face contorted with rage, and his roar echoed fiercely across the Pill River. On the cultivation platform, the crimson dome of light rose, completely engulfing the platform. Waves of powerful energy continuously radiated from the dome, giving a sense of immense stability. The Pill River was an area used by ancient sects for their disciples' cultivation, so the protective formations here were exceptionally strong. If they weren't actively triggered, no matter how much Wang Lai and his men wreaked havoc outside, they wouldn't be able to budge at an inch. Lin Dong's gaze swept over the crimson barriers, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. Noticing the strength of these formations, he couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Those disciples from the ancient sects were indeed fortunate, not only having a coveted cultivation place like the Pill River, but also enjoying such strong protection. Although these formations are a bit damaged, they're still usable. Little Mink appeared and said, patting its paws. Lin Dong nodded and then sat down cross-legged in the center of the cultivation platform. As the barrier extended, he could clearly feel the dense Nirvana chi from the Pill River becoming much more refined, to the point where it could be absorbed directly. This was likely due to the influence of these formations. Little Yin also put away his iron rod and sat beside Lin Dong, his eyes burning with anticipation as he looked around. The Nirvana chi here seemed endless. As someone currently at the Nirvana stage, this was an ideal place for him. Training here would significantly shorten the time needed for him to break through the second Nirvana tribulation. "Those guys don't seem to want to let it go," Little Mink said, glancing at the barrier. Although they couldn't see outside now, it could still imagine the chaos happening out there. "Don't bother with them," Lin Dong replied with a faint smile. At this point, he wasn't interested in wasting his precious time on these people. No matter what kind of trouble they tried to stir outside, Lin Dong didn't care. Once he successfully broke through to the Nirvana stage and overcame a Nirvana tribulation, Wang Lai and his ilk would be no more than ants in his eyes. This was Lin Dong's confidence. Even when he was just at the half-step Nirvana stage, he could already contend with those who had crossed a Nirvana tribulation. If he reached that level himself, ordinary first Nirvana stage powerhouses would be insignificant to him. By that time, even the mysterious Yen Sun he encountered earlier would be someone he could face directly. Only at that point would he have the qualifications to compete with those true powerhouses for the many treasures hidden in ancient ruins. "Little Mink, I'll leave the rest to you." Lin Dong smiled at Little Mink, who nodded in response. Taking a deep breath, Lin Dong slowly closed his eyes, his heart surging with anticipation. Was he finally about to reach this stage? As he gradually suppressed the excitement in his heart, Lin Dong's mind moved, and a black hole rapidly expanded behind his head. Now that the cultivation platform was protected by formations, and Little Mink and Little Yin were his closest companions who knew many of his secrets, Lin Dong felt no need to hide anything. He directly activated the devouring ancestral talisman to its fullest. Boom! Boom! As the black hole spread, waves of devouring power erupted like a torrent. Little Yin and Little Mink watched in surprise as the dense Nirvana chi within the cultivation platform turned into crimson beams of light, continuously surging into the black hole behind Lin Dong's head. As the surging Nirvana chi poured into Lin Dong, his clothes fluttered even without wind, producing a rustling sound. Faintly, beneath his skin, fine crimson lights could be seen swiftly wriggling about. Lin Dong's strength was already at the pinnacle of the half-step Nirvana stage, and he had long been qualified to attempt a breakthrough to the Nirvana stage. However, he had been deliberately holding back. He understood that breaking through to the Nirvana stage was akin to laying the foundation of a house. The sturdier the foundation, the greater the potential achievements in the future. Such a crucial step was not something he dared to undertake lightly. Now, in this place with an endless supply of Nirvana chi, he could thoroughly and fearlessly fortify this foundational base to be exceptionally solid and robust. A massive amount of Nirvana chi frantically flowed into Lin Dong's body, spreading a kind of heat that quietly permeated his insides. The surrounding air even became somewhat scorching. Feeling the increasing heat inside and out, Lin Dong knew the Nirvana chi within him was approaching the limit his body could endure. However, he remained calm. With a thought, golden light began to seep out from his body. Moments later, his entire form was enveloped in this golden glow. Minor Nirvana golden body. Lin Dong had evidently cultivated this minor Nirvana golden body to perfection. At this stage, it was no less formidable than a genuine Nirvana golden body. Within the same realm, finding someone with a more powerful physique than Lin Dong would likely be difficult. Possessing a body that far surpassed ordinary half-step Nirvana powerhouses, the dangers associated with breaking through to the Nirvana stage were minimized for Lin Dong. Everything was proceeding smoothly, like a natural flow. Outside, Little Yin had also entered a state of cultivation. Within his body, streaks of black light spread out, forming the faint image of a giant black tiger on his surface. The tiger roared skyward, unleashing a massive suction force, continuously drawing in the abundant Nirvana chi around him. Although Little Yan's absorption speed couldn't match Lin Dong's, who possessed the devouring ancestral talisman, it was still far beyond that of human powerhouses of the same level. After all, Little Yin possessed the bloodline of the celestial demon tiger clan, coupled with his mutated physique, making him exceptionally strong. Such frenzied absorption was still within his capacity to bear. Nearby, Little Mink watched enviously as Lin Dong and Little Yin absorbed the Nirvana chi in such abundance. In its spirit form, even if it cultivated, the effects were minimal. For Little Mink to truly make a leap in power, it needed a physical body. This time, I must get the life and death reincarnation pill. Little Mink gritted its teeth. Watching Lin Dong and Little Yan's strengths gradually surpass its own was not a pleasant feeling. It was a genius among the heavenly demon Mink clan, a prominent figure even within the demon realm. To fall into such a state now was intolerable to its pride. When I regain my strength someday, I will hunt down those bastards who ambushed me back then. Damn them. They think I don't know who they are just because they hid their presence and faces. Thinking back to that fateful event, a terrifying ferocity and bloodthirstiness flashed in Little Mink's eyes. To dare to strike against me, I'll make them pay 1,000 times over. That incident nearly cost Little Mink its life. If it hadn't decisively detonated its physical body at the last moment, allowing its injured spirit to escape into the stone talisman, it would have long ceased to exist in this world. Over the years, if it hadn't been fortunate enough to encounter Lin Dong, even hidden within the stone talisman, its spirit would have gradually faded with the passage of time. All these grievances were true blood feuds, and with Little Mink's character, it would surely seek revenge. Taking a few deep breaths, Little Mink gradually suppressed the ferocity and killing intent rising within it. Then, glancing at Lin Dong, whose aura was steadily climbing, a hint of pleasure appeared in its eyes. At this pace, Lin Dong would soon be able to break through to the Nirvana stage and attempt the Nirvana tribulation. Kid, whether I can regain my body depends on you now. You've got potential, but it's not enough to make me look up to you yet. When you truly surpass me one day, I might even be okay with calling you the boss. Little Mink stared at Lin Dong with a complicated expression, then cracked a grin. As time passed swiftly during cultivation, 2 days went by in the blink of an eye. Inside the cultivation platform, there was still no movement. Lin Dong and Little Yin were clearly deep in their cultivation. While the cultivation platform remained silent, the area outside along the Pill River was extremely lively. This river was clearly a very attractive location within the ancient treasure trove, and due to its vastness, it was hard for it not to draw attention. Therefore, over the course of these 2 days, more and more powerful individuals arrived here. When they first laid eyes on the expansive Pill River, they were all filled with awe. However, that awe soon turned into frustration and regret when they discovered that the Nirvana chi within the river was too dense for ordinary people to absorb directly. Moreover, the countless corpses of the damned spirits within the river were incredibly troublesome. Anyone who got close to the river was met with countless attacks, leaving them thoroughly vexed. This realization left many feeling like they could spit blood. It was like a starving man finding a feast only to be told that the food was poisoned and could only be looked at, not eaten. However, human ingenuity is powerful. After a brief period of frustration, it wasn't long before someone discovered the hidden cultivation platforms within the Pill River. Cultivating on these platforms seemed to allow one to absorb a significant amount of diluted Nirvana chi. This discovery undoubtedly caused a stir, and soon, the Pill River became incredibly lively. Each cultivation platform became the center of fierce and brutal competition. Meanwhile, outside the cultivation platform where Lin Dong was, a large number of people had unknowingly gathered. Among them was the grim-faced Wang Lai. Clearly, as Little Mink had said, this guy did not intend to give up so easily. Over the vast and expansive Pill River, figures would occasionally flash by, and soon after, countless crimson figures would surge out from within the river. All kinds of chaotic battles were being continuously staged across the river. This time, the opening of the ancient treasure trove had evidently shattered the centuries of silence in this space, leading to increasing chaos within. At this moment, at a certain edge of the Pill River, a large crowd had gathered. Their gazes, filled with cold smiles, were fixed on a spot within the river. There, shrouded by the crimson Nirvana chi, an ancient cultivation platform appeared intermittently. Currently, the platform was enveloped by a very dense crimson light ring that emitted powerful energy fluctuations. These figures wore different attire, and the emblems on their chests represented different dynasties, indicating that they were not from the same faction. Wang Lai, is that brat Lin Dong really hiding in there? Among the crowd, a gaunt man scanned the cultivation platform with a sinister gaze before turning to the person beside him. Yes, I saw him enter with my own eyes. Brother Chen Ku, isn't your withered corpse dynasty fond of spirit puppets? That kid just so happens to have a grade 1 spirit puppet. If you can get your hands on it, it would certainly be a great asset, Wang Lai replied with a smile. A grade 1 spirit puppet? Huh? Hearing this, the man named Chen Ku couldn't help but show a greedy expression. Then he sneered, I've heard of that kid. He's said to be a heavenly talisman master. I'd like to have a match with him to see if he's as formidable as the rumors say. It seems Brother Chen Ku holds Lin Dong in high regard. You've survived a wind and thunder tribulation and are a genuine one-mark heavenly talisman master. I've heard that kid only recently became a heavenly talisman master. How could he possibly compare to you? On Wang Lai's other side, a burly man with a seemingly naive smile chimed in. He looked simple and honest, but those who knew him understood how ruthless he was. This facade had already claimed many lives. Zheng Heizhu, don't try to pull that act with me. I've heard that this kid once even injured Shi Xian of the demonic rock dynasty and has numerous tricks up his sleeve. I'm not foolish enough to seek trouble with him, Chen Ku chuckled. There's no need for the two of you to argue. That kid does have some skills, but the three of us are all first Nirvana Stage powerhouses. Moreover, we have many Nirvana experts under our command. If we join forces, no matter what tricks he has up his sleeve, he won't escape death. Once we kill him, not only will the spirit puppet be ours, but we can also occupy this cultivation platform. Here, we wouldn't have to worry about running out of Nirvana pills. Who knows, we might even be able to attempt the second Nirvana tribulation here, Wang Lai said, waving his hand with a smile. This cultivation platform is indeed quite appealing. Though neither Chen Ku nor Zheng Heizhu seemed convinced about attempting the second Nirvana tribulation, both of their eyes burned with intense desire as they stared at the cultivation platform, enveloped in the crimson light ring. The surrounding Pill River was filled with frenzied fights over these platforms. If they worked together, they could occupy this one, and the benefits would be beyond exciting to imagine. Moreover, I've also sent someone to invite the demonic rock dynasty. Shi Kuan is currently attempting his second Nirvana tribulation. With his abilities, he has a 70% chance of succeeding. Once he does, he'll be a genuine second Nirvana Stage powerhouse. Given the enmity between him and Lin Dong, he'll likely be the first to make a move against him. So, that kid is undoubtedly doomed. Oh, Shirkuin is attempting his second Nirvana tribulation. Hearing this, both Chinku and the other man showed signs of shock in their eyes. They had both personally experienced the terrifying power of the Nirvana tribulation and knew well that each subsequent tribulation was more dreadful than the last. When they crossed their first Nirvana tribulation, they were nearly at death's door. They knew that with their current strength, attempting the second Nirvana tribulation would likely result in their self-immolation on the spot. Thus, hearing that Shirkuin had such confidence in passing the second Nirvana tribulation filled them with both envy and jealousy. Lin Dong has caused the reputation of the demonic rock dynasty to plummet, and Shirkuin has long hated him to the bone. It serves him right for being too arrogant, making enemies wherever he goes. This time, I want to see how he escapes. Wang Lai's eyes were filled with malice as he stared at the cultivation platform enveloped by the crimson light ring. His sinister smile was terrifying, as if he could already see the scene of Lin Dong being stomped underfoot and mercilessly trampled upon. Kid, if you have the guts, hide in that cultivation platform like a turtle forever. While chaos and battles raged outside the Pill River, the cultivation platform where Lin Dong resided remained as calm and serene as a piece of untouched land, unaffected by the violent disturbances outside. In the center of the cultivation platform, Lin Dong sat quietly, cross-legged on the ground, with Nirvana chi swirling around him. Faintly, there was a sound like flowing water, revealing just how dense and powerful the Nirvana chi in this place was. Within the thick crimson Nirvana chi, brilliant golden light suddenly shot out from the pores all over Lin Dong's body. Under this golden radiance, it seemed as though his flesh, bones, and even internal organs were made of pure gold, exuding an indestructible and powerful aura. Nirvana, golden body. This was the true hallmark of a Nirvana powerhouse. By tempering the body with Nirvana chi, one could refine every part of the body from the inside out, strengthening it to an incredibly formidable degree. Once the Nirvana golden body is forged, not only does one's defense greatly increase, but strength, speed, and everything else also surge dramatically. It represents a true transformation. The reason Nirvana powerhouses can stand above all creation stage experts is not primarily because their yuan power is more robust, but because they possess the powerful Nirvana golden body. With the protection of the Nirvana golden body, they can almost ignore the attacks of creation stage experts. Of course, this is not absolute. After all, there are always exceptions like Lin Dong, who defy conventional understanding. But from a general perspective, creation stage experts, or even half-step Nirvana experts, have no chance of victory against a Nirvana powerhouse with a genuine Nirvana golden body. Has he successfully advanced to the Nirvana stage? Little Mink looked at Lin Dong, whose entire body was radiating dazzling golden light. Even his blood flowing inside had turned golden. A hint of joy flashed in its eyes. Normally, there's always a risk of failure when attempting to break through to the Nirvana stage, but clearly, this wasn't the case for Lin Dong. Over the past 2 days, the amount of Nirvana chi he absorbed, if converted into Nirvana Pills, would be worth at least 2 million. Yet, with his powerful physique, Lin Dong had managed to withstand this vast amount of Nirvana chi, which would have caused many others to self-destruct in shock. His advancement was as natural as flowing water. Everything proceeded smoothly, without encountering any obstacles. Accumulated power burst forth. With Lin Dong's strength, he had long been qualified to challenge the Nirvana stage, but he wisely chose to suppress it. Now, that suppression allowed him to break through the Nirvana stage's formidable barrier like a hot knife through butter. An extraordinarily strong and overwhelming aura began to emanate from Lin Dong's body, eventually spreading throughout the crimson light ring. This aura was several times more powerful than before. With this advancement to the Nirvana stage, Lin Dong himself didn't even know how much Nirvana chi he had absorbed. He had directly activated the devouring ancestral talisman's power to its maximum and began devouring the seemingly inexhaustible Nirvana chi around him like a madman. It wasn't until his strong body felt it could hardly bear any more that he gradually stopped. Based on Lin Dong's rough estimation, The amount of Nirvana chi he absorbed had reached an astonishing level of over 2 million. If this news were to spread, it would undoubtedly cause quite a stir. Everyone knows that the more Nirvana chi one absorbs during the breakthrough to the Nirvana stage, the better. However, there is a limit to this, and that limit is the maximum capacity your body can endure. Even someone as strong as Shur Kuan from the demonic rock dynasty, when he first broke through to the Nirvana stage, could only withstand the Nirvana chi equivalent to 800,000 Nirvana pills. But now, Lin Dong had endured several times that amount. Phew! A faintly golden breath was exhaled from Lin Dong's nose. His tightly closed eyes suddenly opened at this moment, revealing a flash of golden light. From a distance, he looked like a wrathful golden Buddha, exuding an imposing presence. Nirvana Stage! Lin Dong's fists clenched slowly, and a terrifying power rippled through his body. He could feel that with his current strength alone, he was now fully capable of contending with Shur Kuan. The Nirvana chi equivalent to nearly several million Nirvana pills was no trivial matter. Moreover, this was not even the limit he aspired to. He had always said that when he broke through to the Nirvana stage, he would immediately challenge the Nirvana tribulation that everyone feared like a ferocious tiger. Little Mink, observing the sudden fervor in Lin Dong's eyes, clearly understood what was happening and immediately leapt backward. Nirvana tribulation. Let me see just how terrifying you really are. Lin Dong's eyes burned with intensity. With a low roar, his mind focused, and the brilliant golden light around him suddenly contracted inward. Then, a terrifying wave of energy quickly spread out from within him. Under this immense wave of energy, even with Lin Dong's formidable physique, his body trembled violently. Wisps of white smoke began to rise from his reddening skin. Little Mink retreated to a safe distance, clicking its tongue as it watched Lin Dong's skin turn crimson. It knew that inside Lin Dong's body, a violent upheaval was already underway. Boom! Boom! Just as Little Mink was preparing to see how Lin Dong would withstand the Nirvana tribulation, its expression suddenly changed. It quickly looked up, and above the cultivation platform, dark clouds were suddenly forming. In the distance, flashes of silver lightning and fierce winds were gathering. This is the wind and thunder tribulation of a heavenly talisman master? Seeing the dark clouds and lightning forming, Little Mink's pupils shrank sharply. It hadn't expected that the wind and thunder tribulation for a heavenly talisman master would arrive at the exact same moment as the Nirvana tribulation. The Nirvana stage is divided into 9 levels, while a heavenly talisman master is divided into 9 marks. Nirvana powerhouses face the Nirvana tribulation, which they fear but must inevitably cross. Similarly, a heavenly talisman master has something they both love and hate: the wind and thunder tribulation. Spiritual energy inherently has the power to manipulate the divine forces of heaven and earth. Therefore, upon stepping into the realm of a heavenly talisman master, whenever their spiritual power reaches a certain level, it will inevitably draw forth the wind and thunder tribulation. This was a powerful force formed by wind and thunder. Once the wind and thunder tribulation took shape, the spiritual power of the person undergoing the tribulation would be involuntarily drawn out, subjected to a baptism by wind and thunder. If one could successfully pass through, their spiritual power would naturally become more refined and potent. However, if one failed and their spiritual power was scattered by the wind and thunder, the consequences would be no less severe than failing the Nirvana tribulation. Nirvana tribulation and wind and thunder tribulation arriving simultaneously. This kid really does everything differently. Little Mink chuckled with a hint of schadenfreude as it looked at the forming wind and thunder tribulation, and then at Lin Dong, who had already closed his eyes and was resisting the Nirvana tribulation within his body. Little Mink had vast experience and had seen individuals like Lin Dong who cultivated both spiritual and yuan power. However, generally speaking, such individuals would avoid the simultaneous arrival of these two tribulations, as one was internal and the other external. Facing both at once could easily lead to unforeseen complications. And the consequences of such complications could be extremely serious. In the worst-case scenario, an accidental misstep could lead to one's demise right on the spot. In the center of the cultivation platform, Lin Dong's entire body was crimson red, clearly indicating the Nirvana tribulation within him was erupting. Little Mink could also sense that the moment the wind and thunder tribulation appeared, Lin Dong's aura wavered with a brief fluctuation, but it quickly stabilized again. Is Big Brother going to be all right? Little Yin, who had been in deep cultivation nearby, opened his eyes with some concern, watching the scene unfold. Don't worry. Though having both tribulations appear simultaneously is troublesome, this kid isn't easy to deal with. He's not going to die that easily, Little Mink replied lazily. Little Yin nodded slightly. He had always had great confidence in Lin Dong. After all, over the years, no matter what enemies they faced, it was always Lin Dong, who seemed unimpressive at first glance, who ended up victorious. How is your celestial demon transformation training progressing? Little Mink asked, glancing at Little Yin. I've successfully completed the first transformation. This martial art is incredibly powerful. Little Yin scratched his head. As he delved deeper into the celestial demon transformation, he could gradually sense its extraordinary nature. The first transformation is already successful? Little Mink's eyebrows raised slightly, its expression calm, but it was internally shaken. Only it truly understood the level of the celestial demon transformation. Even within the celestial demon tiger clan, it was considered a top-tier martial art. Within the celestial demon tiger clan, even those with pure celestial demon tiger blood had to undergo immense hardship to successfully master the celestial demon transformation. Yet, Little Yin had managed to succeed in just 1 or 2 months. If this speed were known in the celestial demon tiger clan, it would certainly cause quite a stir. No wonder he possesses such a rare, mutated physique. Little Mink murmured with a sigh, feeling increasingly expectant of Little Yan's future achievements. Boom! Boom! As Little Mink and Little Yin conversed, the thunderclouds in the sky had fully formed. Thunder rumbled, and suddenly, a strange suction force erupted. Under this suction force, Little Mink and Little Yin saw a flash of light burst from Lin Dong's Nirvana Palace. Then, a phantom figure rose up, hovering above Lin Dong's head. This phantom figure was naturally Lin Dong's spiritual form. At this moment, he looked up with a slightly helpless expression at the thunderclouds, then glanced at his body below. His body was now extremely crimson, looking as if it were about to burst into flames, radiating a terrifying energy. Hey kid, you're really out of luck. Your spiritual form has been pulled out of your body. What about the Nirvana tribulation inside? Little Mink laughed with schadenfreude as it looked at Lin Dong's spiritual form being forcibly pulled from his Nirvana Palace. Lin Dong smiled faintly, showing no panic. Instead, he remained remarkably calm. The Nirvana tribulation doesn't seem to pose much of a threat to me. Oh! Little Mink was a bit surprised, evidently unsure of where Lin Dong's confidence came from. His spiritual power had been pulled out of his body, leaving his physical form unguarded. How could it withstand the erupting Nirvana tribulation? Little Mink's doubts were soon answered. It saw a gentle white light suddenly radiating from Lin Dong's heart. This light was cool and soothing, yet incredibly miraculous. As it spread, Lin Dong's body, which had turned crimson as if about to burst into flames, rapidly regained some of its normal color. This is the mysterious stone talisman? Upon seeing the familiar white light, Little Mink paused for a moment, then exclaimed in astonishment. Lin Dong nodded. The mysterious stone talisman was extraordinarily miraculous. As long as it resided within his body, no matter how violent the Nirvana tribulation became, it could never completely destroy his physical form. This gave him ample time to deal with the wind and thunder tribulation. In the sky, the thunderclouds churned. In the next instant, a bolt of lightning, infused with the power of wind and thunder and shimmering in a silver-gray hue, suddenly tore through the sky and struck Lin Dong's spiritual form with a fierce impact. Boom! A muffled explosion erupted from Lin Dong's spiritual form, immediately causing layers of electric light to flicker across his somewhat ethereal figure. Ha! Even with both tribulations arriving simultaneously, they still can't defeat me, Lin Dong. With lightning crackling all over his body, caught between the dual tribulations, the fervor in Lin Dong's eyes suddenly intensified. His spirit soared, and with a tight grip of his palm, a powerful, devouring force erupted. The electric arcs corroding his spiritual power were forcibly absorbed into his spiritual form, making it even more refined. Devouring ancestral talisman. Reveal yourself. Lin Dong took a step forward, and an ancient rune, resembling a black hole, slowly emerged from his forehead, emanating a terrifying, devouring power as it writhed. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. The thundercloud seemed enraged by Lin Dong's audacity. Amidst the rolling clouds, streaks of lightning formed from the power of wind and thunder continuously descended, striking viciously at Lin Dong's spiritual form. Facing this barrage of thunderbolts, Lin Dong showed no sign of dodging. He spread his arms wide, allowing the lightning to crash heavily onto his body. Bang! Bang! Asterisk. Lin Dong's spiritual form was continuously pushed back by the relentless strikes of the lightning. Blinding arcs of electricity frantically flickered across his body, and the violent force was enough to shatter the spiritual power of any ordinary heavenly talisman master. Devoured all. An ordinary heavenly talisman master wouldn't dare use their spiritual form to withstand such thunderbolts directly. However, Lin Dong, relying on the presence of the devouring ancestral talisman, was utterly unafraid. He laughed heartily, and the devouring ancestral talisman on his forehead began to move faster. A massive devouring force spread out, and the electric arcs on Lin Dong's body rapidly disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, clearly being absorbed directly by him. Under this devouring force, Lin Dong's spiritual form quickly became more condensed, and the spiritual energy fluctuations emanating from him grew increasingly powerful. Watching the scene unfold, both Little Mink and Little Yin couldn't help but click their tongues in admiration. The terrifying Nirvana tribulation and wind and thunder tribulation, which were so fearsome in the eyes of others, seemed to pose little threat to Lin Dong. Currently, Lin Dong's physical body was protected by the mysterious stone talisman. The talisman's mystique was something even Little Mink couldn't fully comprehend. With its presence, the Nirvana tribulation could not possibly destroy Lin Dong's body. As for the wind and thunder tribulation, while future levels might present a challenge, the current first level clearly couldn't overcome a divine object like the devouring ancestral talisman. With both the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral talisman, Lin Dong naturally had the confidence to disregard these formidable Nirvana and wind and thunder tribulations. There aren't many people in this world who could pass through these two tribulations as effortlessly as he does, Little Mink sighed, shaking its head. If other Nirvana powerhouses and heavenly talisman masters knew how easily Lin Dong was handling the tribulations that they feared, they would probably be green with envy. Little Yin also nodded in agreement. After all, divine objects like the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral talisman were not things everyone could possess. Now we just have to wait for this guy to successfully overcome the tribulations. How boring. I was hoping to see him scurrying around in a mess. Little Mink stretched lazily. It had been expecting a more thrilling scene, but instead, it was surprisingly mundane. Little Yin chuckled in a straightforward manner and then sat down, looking up at Lin Dong as he devoured the successive bolts of lightning. Under their watchful eyes, amidst the roaring thunder and surging flames on the cultivation platform, one particular aura seemed to be undergoing a metamorphosis, growing increasingly vigorous and powerful at a terrifying pace.